Chapter 1. 10 years ago. Gold ran down Cedric's brow, warm as sunlight, rich with the scent of myrrh. The priest's cool fingers traced an ancient sigil across his forehead, and Cedric inhaled deeply, steadying himself. This was meant to be sacred, a blessing. And it was. A quiet pride stirred in his chest. He had trained for this moment, had prepared for it. He believed in his duty and in the legacy passed down to him. But God's, he had never enjoyed the staring. So many eyes, assessing, expectant, waiting for him to stumble.
Kneel, Prince of Lunareth. The priest's words echoed through the high temple of Ar-Ennis. The vast chamber soared above Cedric, its mirrored walls catching slants of sunlight from narrow celestial windows. Sunburst mosaics stretched across the domed ceiling, displaying the history of Lunareth and its rulers in bands of gold and red jasper.
A hush fell over the gathered nobility. His mother and father stood at the very front, positioned just beside the priest. His mother's proud smile was tinged with joy, while his father, ever composed, stood nearby to take part in the ritual when needed. Cedric straightened under their gaze, drawing strength from their presence. But he couldn't see his sister, Gwenna. She was probably off making trouble somewhere, even during a formal ceremony. The priest dipped his fingers into the sacred oil again, the flecks of gold shimmering as he anointed the backs of Cedric's hands. An acolyte stepped forward, carrying a thin golden circlet upon a velvet cushion. This circlet marks you as the kingdom's protector, the heir to Lunareth, the priest intoned. May you serve with wisdom and strength.
The moment the metal touched Cedric's forehead, a strange sensation rippled through him, like a key turned in the wrong lock. It vanished as quickly as it came, lost beneath the priest's unwavering voice. By the will of the gods and the blessing of your ancestors, you are named the Gilded Prince. King William Cleburne stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Cedric's shoulder. As you step closer to your future, remember this. Power is not measured in conquest, but in kindness. A ruler is judged not by how he commands armies, but by how he protects those who cannot protect themselves. The words settled into Cedric's bones, heavier than the circlet. He swallowed, throat tight, then lifted his gaze to meet his father's as he spoke the vow he'd memorized. Before Ar-Ennis and all who bear witness, I swear to guard this kingdom and its people with wisdom and mercy. I swear it upon my name, my blood, and my breath. The priest gestured, and Darius stepped forward from the line of acolytes, carrying the shallow bowl of polished obsidian, the sacred stone. Cedric's heart stuttered. He suddenly wished he hadn't asked his friend to take part in the ceremony. Too much of a distraction. Darius had always drawn him like that, too familiar to fear, too dangerous to resist. A hand offered in loyalty, a blade hidden just beneath the skin. Cedric trusted him, needed him, wanted him more than he should have. He extended his hand without hesitation. The priest passed the ceremonial dagger to Darius, its handle wrapped in golden silk. Darius came closer, so close that Cedric caught the scent of him. Don't think about that right now. Focus. The world will change because of you, Darius murmured, so quietly only Cedric could hear. Their eyes met, a breath too long. Then Darius reached, taking Cedric's hand in his own as he turned the palm upward. Cedric was so focused on the sensation of Darius's touch that he almost didn't feel the pressure of the dagger's tick. The blade bit cleanly into Cedric's flesh. A sharp sting bloomed, followed by a slow, pulsing ache. A thin line of crimson welled up,
slipping down his fingers. Darius caught the drops in the ball, tilting the obsidian to hold it, a gleaming crimson pool shining dark against the stone. Cedric clenched his jaw against the pain, unwilling to show weakness before all of those eyes.
Darius flashed a grin at him, then hefted the bowl for all to see. I bear witness to the bond. Blood given, oath taken, life bound to duty. The priest nodded to Darius. Cedric watched as he slipped away to join the acolytes of Arenis. But duty took precedence over longing. He forced himself to let Darius fade into the crowd. The priest lifted the second ceremonial vessel, a shallow bronze brazier, coals smoldering within. He poured a vial of sacred resin into the embers. A plume of smoke wafted upward, shifting from pale gold to deep amber, the scent rich and heady. The smoke curled in slow, beckoning tendrils, waiting. Cedric closed his eyes and inhaled. The warmth filled his lungs, seeping through him like liquid sunlight. For a moment, something stirred deep inside, something half asleep and waiting. Then the moment passed, interrupted by the priest's final pronouncement. By sacred right and sovereign will, I name you Prince Cedric Claiborne, gilded heir of Lunareth. Applause swelled around him, and Cedric banished all thoughts of the strange sensation. For a moment he allowed himself to breathe, to absorb the moment, the temple's golden light, the heavy scent of myrrh, the comforting presence of his father beside him. But the solemnity of the ritual had already begun to fade, replaced by the expectant murmurs of the gathered nobility. The ceremony had been the easy part. Now, he had to endure the celebration. His father beamed, clapping a hand on Cedric's shoulder. You did well, Ced. We're so proud of you. Mom hurried over, taking his still bleeding hand in hers. She pressed a handkerchief against it. Warmth bloomed beneath his skin. This will hold until you can see the royal healer. She winked, voice light, but the magic laced beneath her words was unmistakable. Go on. Get this taken care of. We'll see you in the Great Hall. Cedric smiled, holding the handkerchief in place. The soft tingle of his mother's magic danced across the cut. It was unfortunate she couldn't do more, but they were in public. Too many watching eyes. Thanks, Mom. I'll be there as soon as I'm no longer at risk of bleeding all over the marble. She kissed his forehead. Then she turned as King William offered her his arm, and together they started toward the Great Hall. Too many expectations. The thought hissed like steam in Cedric's skull. The Great Hall glittered with 1,000 watchful eyes. Courtiers swarmed like jeweled beetles, their silks shifting like oil-slicked water. And at the heart of it all, Cassara Maravel stood among them, a striking figure in dark silver and blue. The woman who would soon become his betrothed. The words sat like iron in his stomach. It was meant to be a triumph, a political bond between Lunareth and Revendar, but all he felt was trapped. Cassara met his gaze briefly, offering him a polite nod before turning away to speak to a noblewoman draped in furs. Cedric touched the now-healed scar on his palm, rubbing it as a distraction. He would have to go speak with her soon. It would be rude not to. But still, his gut clenched. It's what I must do. We both know this alliance isn't for love. No, it was for trade and mutual protection. Already the Avalisian Empire was pounding on Revendar's door. The ever-growing tide of refugees was proof enough that their western neighbor was soon to be in dire straits. Gwenna's punch to his arm demanded his immediate attention.
His sister's frown was a masterpiece of teenage disdain, her cheeks flushed under auburn curls. "You look like you'd rather stab yourself with a dessert fork than be here," she declared. "Ah, Gwenna." Her words cut through the room's syrup, a welcome distraction. "You're not wrong." He sighed, gaze sliding to a cluster of courtiers preening in silk monstrosities. One man's lace collar could have doubled as a siege weapon. Cedric's own collar chafed. "Where were you?" Gwenna's eyes widened in her best "whatever do you mean" expression. "I just hope you weren't getting into the temple's wine again." Cedric frowned at her. "Slander and lies," Gwenna shot back. "That was one time." He snorted. "One time was probably enough to permanently put you on Arenis's dark side. What were you actually doing?" Gwenna grinned, eyes glinting with mischief. "If you must know, I was borrowing a map from the war room." Cedric stiffened. "You what?" "Relax, I'll put it back later." She grinned at him. He gave her his best serious look, which had no effect on her. "You realize you're telling that to the Gilded Prince, right? If anyone found out, there would be questions. Uncomfortable ones. You could get into real trouble for this, Gwenna. I'm telling my brother who loves me dearly and wouldn't dare breathe a word of this to anyone." Gwenna's grin broadened. "And hey, this is a celebration. So let's celebrate." Her lips brushed Cedric's cheek. "Bye." Her skirts hissed against his boots as she vanished into the crowd, a fox slipping into tall grass. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. This celebration might be in his honor, but somehow he didn't feel as if he belonged at all. Cedric glanced around, noticing the gazes of several nobles land on him, as if judging the perfect opportunity to pounce on their newly minted Gilded Prince. That was the last thing Cedric wanted to deal with at the moment. Perhaps it was time to seek out his future wife. Cedric eased through the crowd, nobles slipping out of his path with respectful bows or curtsies. He nodded to them, smiling at Cassara as he approached. Dressed in a flowing gown of deep blue with silver piping, Cassara Maravel stood with the kind of stillness that commanded attention, rather than begged for it. Embroidered patterns of stags and ivy gleamed along her sleeves, symbols of Revendar's noble lineage, while a silver circlet rested against her platinum hair, catching the chandelier's glow. The Revendarian princess broke away from her current conversation to greet him. "Prince Cedric. Or should I say, Gilded Prince. Congratulations." "Thank you, though it's symbolic more than anything else," he said with a shrug. Cassara raised a brow. "Symbols have power, Prince Cedric. Does your Gilded Prince ceremony not have roots in tradition?" He blinked at the question, mind churning as he sought every bit of history he knew about the ceremony. "That's what they say. It's meant to sanctify me as the heir, to solidify my role." Cedric stalled as she continued to give him an expectant look, seeking more than the little he'd offered. He cleared his throat. "You'll have to forgive me. He hesitated, choosing his words. But if anyone would understand his current state of mind, it would be another royal child. I'm overwhelmed and can't think straight right now." His honesty caught her off guard. Cassara's eyes widened, but then her expression softened. "I can't fault you for that. Sometimes, well, this life is more demanding than anyone else knows." Her voice had become a whisper, the words for his ears alone. Cedric relaxed a fraction. Truth be told, he hadn't been given a moment of time alone with Cassara to get to know her, to discover if she might be compatible as a friend, if nothing else. Perhaps that might be a possibility. It gave him hope, It is, Cedric agreed. But he felt the prickle of eyes on him, and knew he couldn't remain with her much longer. The reason for Kisara's presence at court hadn't been announced yet, and he couldn't appear to favor a foreign princess over his own people. He sighed. "I'll speak more with you soon." Kisara nodded, though her expression was more polite than excited. "I look forward to it." He stepped away, casting around for a safe place to continue this farce. If Cedric had to remain at this celebration, he was doing it on his own terms. Across the hall he glimpsed a friendly face. Darius. Heaving out a soft breath, Cedric headed toward him. As he slipped through the crowd, he caught snippets of conversation. "A war brewing, I tell you. The border patrols should be doubled. Filthy beggars from Revend are flooding the city. We should shut the gates before we're overrun." His Majesty clings to the idea of alliances, but sentiment won't stop an empire. The boy is of age now. Perhaps it's time Lunareth had a ruler who understands strength. Cedric clenched his jaw. The voices melted together, whispers and grumblings twisting between the strains of a violin. He exhaled slowly, forcing his hands to unclench. The petitioners in court earlier that week had included a mother and her 2 sons, their clothes ripped and dirty, bodies gaunt with hunger. His father had ordered they be given food and shelter. Their faces haunted him, and it took Cedric a moment to banish their memory. Tonight was meant for revelry. Cedric plowed onward. The great hall's vaulted ceilings stifled laughter and torch smoke alike, its soaring arches adorned with garlands of moonflowers already wilting beneath the warmth. By the time he reached the shadow of the banquet table's carved griffins, sweat glued his linen undershirt to the hollow between his shoulder blades. Darius waited as always, a study in effortless confidence, one boot propped against the column's fluted base. He lifted his tankard in a salute, pulling his tunic taut across shoulders still lean from last summer's growth spurt, but broad enough now to make Cedric's throat dry. "There you are, my gilded prince." The tankard Darius thrust into Cedric's hands, sloshed liquid the color of a sunset. "Quite popular tonight, aren't you?" Darius slung an arm around Cedric's shoulders. "I'd argue the party is more popular than I am," Cedric said, the lie flavored with truth. Darius smirked, tipping his tankard slightly. "Oh, but where would the fun be without its reluctant guest of honor?" He patted Cedric's shoulder. Then his countenance shifted. "I can't believe the Revendarian princess is still here. Shouldn't she be running home with her tail between her legs?" Cedric frowned, tapping his index finger against the tankard as he debated how much to tell his friend. Darius's mother was the royal spy mistress, and Cedric knew Lady Valcairn knew why Kisara Marivel was in attendance. But Darius's comment implied that she hadn't seen fit to enlighten her son, however. He should know, Cedric decided, if for no other reason than to keep him from saying something that might seed future problems. "She's here for a reason." "And that is?" Darius cocked his head. Cedric pursed his lips. "You're going to have to keep this secret for a few more days." "Can you do that?" His friend grinned. "Oh, Cedric, you have no idea how good I am at keeping secrets." He eased closer, so close that Cedric caught a whiff of the fragrant soap Darius favored. "What is it? Are they being annexed to Lunareth, perhaps?" "We're to be betrothed later this week," Cedric whispered. Darius's eyes widened. "Truly said? We're really going to have a marriage alliance with that kingdom? The one that can't keep a bunch of unshaved barbarians from crossing their borders?" The tone of disbelief and scorn instantly put Cedric on the defensive. "It would be mutually beneficial. It just seems unfair, that's all."
Darius shrugged. You of all people, stuck with a woman you don't even... He trailed off, giving Cedric an expectant look. My parents didn't love each other at first either, Cedric reminded him, though it was really more of a reminder for himself. In his heart, though, he knew he could never truly love Kasara. Not romantically, not the way she probably deserved. But things have a way of working out. Ever the optimist. Darius's expression slipped into a smile. Well, I suppose I should be congratulating you then, shouldn't I? Let's drink to your future. Cedric picked at the tankard's pewter handle with his thumbnail, a distraction from Darius's close proximity. He hesitated, then pushed the drink back toward him. Maybe another time. But Darius wouldn't be dissuaded. Said, come on, this is special, just for your big day. Gods, Cedric always had a difficult time telling Darius no. He glanced inside the tankard. What is it, dishwater? Darius laughed. Huh. A warm sound that made gooseflesh race across Cedric's arms. Hardly. It's made of exotic fruits not found in our lands. Have you heard of pineapple? Heard of it, yes. Seen one? No. Cedric eyed the drink. Then you're in for a treat. Taste. Darius took a sip of his own, savoring the flavor with a sigh. It's one of several fruits. I think you'll find it delightful. He sniffed the beverage first, a habit born of one too many festive surprises. But all he caught was the faintest whiff of citrus, and something earthy, like sun-warmed grass. Against his better judgment, he took a sip. The liquid hit his tongue with a deceptively innocent sweetness, like stolen summer peaches, before the tartness sparked, sharp as a lemon's kiss, lingering just long enough to make his jaw clench. He coughed, blinking at the tankard. That's surprisingly good, he admitted, rolling the taste on his tongue like a thought he wasn't sure he should keep. He turned the cup, as if its dull metal might reveal secrets. Pineapple, you say? Darius's grin widened, smug and devastating all at once. One of several fruits, yes. It's a blend. His voice was smooth, a blade honed to perfection, and his eyes, God's his beautiful eyes, gleamed with something Cedric couldn't name. Triumph? Amusement? Or something far more dangerous? Something that coiled around Cedric's heart like a vice and sent heat licking up the back of his neck. Cedric swallowed another mouthful quickly, more to busy himself than out of thirst, not trusting himself to meet that gaze for too long. His gaze flicked downward as Darius lifted his cup. Something glinted in the candlelight. A gold ring. In all his years, Cedric had never seen his friend wear a ring. The metal gleamed against Darius's skin, its ruby centerpiece catching the light like a smoldering coal. You wear rings now? Cedric teased, nudging Darius's hand with his knuckles. Darius glanced down at it, flexing his fingers with a lazy shrug. An early birthday gift from my mother, he said, tipping his cup toward a nearby table where Lady Priscilla Valcairn sat, deep in conversation with a nobleman. She insisted it would suit me. His expression turned wry. A symbol of responsibility or some such lecture I didn't bother listening to. Cedric huffed a quiet laugh. That sounds like her. And you. Darius tapped the ring absently against his cup. Doesn't it? He swirled his drink. She said it was my father's. He brought it back from Revendar on his last expedition. His tone was light, but Cedric caught the slight edge beneath it. He passed not long after. Cedric didn't need the rest of the story.
Lord Valcairn had sought out the druids of Revendar for healing, but their magic hadn't saved him. Whether they'd failed or simply refused, Darius had never forgiven them.
Rather than dwell on it, Cedric rolled his eyes, leaning back against the pillar. Gods help us all when you start listening to your mother's fashion advice. Darius grinned, knocking his cup lightly against Cedric's. "Oh, Cedric," he murmured, "you wound me." Cedric's gaze drifted again, always, inevitably betraying him, to Darius's hair, mahogany strands gilded by lantern light, tousled just enough to seem effortless. A dangerous lie. Nothing about Darius was effortless. Every glance, every word, every move was honed for maximum effect. Cedric knew this, had always known this, but still. He knew the exact curve of Darius's brow when scheming, the way his lips thinned during lectures. But this, the softness of his smile now, the quiet, almost disarming warmth behind his eyes, that was a far crueler weapon than any sharp remark or veiled threat. That was the trap Cedric had walked into too many times before, and would walk into again. Cedric's pulse stuttered. "Stop. You're drunk on idiocy." "Did you do this?" Cedric asked, too abruptly. The hall's din swelled around them, lutes twined with laughter, goblets clinking like discordant bells, but Darius's reply cut through cleanly. "Happy birthday. This will be a night you won't forget." Darius lifted his tankard in a toast. Cedric's cheeks burned, and not from the drink. Darius refilled his tankard without asking, the drink cascading in a golden stream. Cedric drank anyway, letting the sweetness blur the edges of his wariness. The warmth spread, first in his belly, then his limbs, loose and weightless. He caught his parents' distant conversation, their faces crinkled with pride, and for a heartbeat, the world softened. The tapestries rippled like living things, their embroidered hawks soaring in the candle-lit haze. Even the stone floor beneath his boots seemed to sway, as if the castle itself had taken a drunken lurch. By the time Cedric stumbled into the corridor, the buzz in his skull had sharpened to a hive's roar. Cold air struck his face, a mercy after the hall's suddenly unbearable heat. He braced a palm against the wall. His mind felt like wool soaked in honey. Somewhere behind him, Darius spun the treasury minister's daughter in a whirl of silk, his laughter trailing like smoke. That sound, rich, smug, too much, threaded through Cedric's mind, leaving a strange, baking tightness in its wake. He blinked, trying to steady himself, but the floor swayed beneath his feet. "I need to sit, just for a moment." When Cedric pushed himself upright, his legs buckled, and the thought shattered. He caught himself awkwardly, the world tilting around him. He hadn't had that much to drink. Had he? His chambers loomed ahead, the oak door swimming in and out of focus. He made for it with grim determination, shouldering it open and stumbling inside. The fire had died down to embers, casting the room in dim smudges of charcoal and ash. He fumbled off his shoes, one disappearing under the bed, and collapsed onto the mattress with a groan. The sheets were cold against his skin, but he barely noticed. The pillow smelled of lavender. Or maybe that was the drink still twisting his senses. Gods, it was still clinging to him, coating his tongue like a spell meant to muddle his mind. His fingers clenched in the fabric beneath him. Gwenna's grin flitted through his mind. Then his mother's laughter, bright as harp strings. Then Darius. His intoxicating, effortless grace. The way his eyes held galaxies of unspoken promise. The heat of his arms slung around Cedric's shoulders. The ghost of his smile, curling like the rim of a goblet, like an invitation Cedric should never, ever take. "You did something to that drink," he thought hazily. Cedric groaned and dragged the pillow over his stomach, pressing down, as if he could shove the nausea back, as if he could shove Darius back. And then his gut heaved. He rolled sideways, swallowing bile. The garderobe. He needed the garderobe. But when his feet hit the rug, pain erupted. Not the dull throb of too much drink, but 1,000 needles searing through muscle and bone. His legs buckled. Cedric crashed to his knees, a raw, strangled cry tearing free. His breath hitched. His fingers curled against the floor, except they weren't fingers anymore. Talons. Long, curved, gleaming wet in the low light. His nails were gone, peeled away like shed leaves. The bones of his hands cracked, stretched, reshaping as golden scales bloomed across his knuckles, pushing through flesh with a sickening pop. He pressed his shaking hands, claws, against the cold stone floor, as if doing so might somehow halt the impossible changes racking his body. His guts soured, and for a heartbeat he thought, "This can't be real. This isn't happening." But the searing pain crawling up his spine told him otherwise. He sucked in a desperate, jagged breath. No. The sound that left him was wrong. Too deep. Too monstrous. His hand shot to his throat, but the skin there was already shifting, bubbling, hardening, elongating. A scream tried to claw free, but what tore from his chest was a roar, a sound he had never made before, one that didn't belong to him. He was changing, warping, losing himself. A sob tore free as he crawled toward the door, clawing at the stone, at himself, at whatever was happening to him. He had to stop it. He had to get help. And then, through the searing haze of his mind, a single thought cut through. Mom. His breath hitched. His hands, claws, dug into the floor. She always knows what to do. She always helps. She always. A sharp pop cracked through his spine. His vision whited out. But he kept moving, because if he could just get to her, if he could just reach her, she'd fix this. She'd fix him.